important. Why have the leaders of our nation refused repeatedly to answer all of these questions with all the available data?
Thermate. That's what makes it. Thermite adds sulfur. It's now thermate. Sulfur, and this is, will now cut through that steel cup very quickly in a fraction of a second. I had a female student who was trying to time that. She said, there's no way. It's cut through. Okay, aluminum. You guys are right on, right? Aluminum, sulfur, manganese, and iron. Those are the main compounds. Now here it comes. Ta-da! This is the dust particle from the World Trade Center from Jeanette McKinley's sample. And we see, I showed nothing up my sleeve. Nothing, magician, nothing up my sleeve, Willie. There is nothing. No, this is science. Anyway, I showed this to Doug Rocky last night. He got teary-eyed looking at this. I'll let you describe some implications, Doug, if you would. But anyway, look, iron, this is the sulfur peak, folks. It's off scale, or nearly, because they scale it, but it goes almost up. Aluminum, we see copper as well. So we can tell you what they put in the thermate. These data, hot off the press, last Wednesday, okay? Iron oxide, aluminum powder, copper oxide, and if you look, here's another plot, another spot shows potassium permanganate. I can tell you what they put in there. Now let's let Doug comment, if you would, Doug.
When we saw the data, now I knew about this already, but when I saw the data last night, it was very readily obvious. Willie, where are you at?
Right here.
Come here. Okay, Willie, you and my friends in the emergency services unit, as you were in the floors, what did you hear, sir?
I heard explosions, and I had this horrible smell that got stuck on my throat.
What was the smell?
I want to repeat. What did you smell?
It was like ammonium and sulfur that stuck on my throat, and I did made a comment on television 5 days after because they asked me. And that was September 15 or 16 on television, national television in Spanish, and I'm talking about this acrid smoke. I'm talking about this acrid smoke. Television, national television in Spanish, and I'm talking about this acrid smoke.
Where's David? David, in 911 in plain sight, you specifically talked to and have on camera members of the New York Police and Fire Department, and what specifically did they state?
Okay, I don't want to misspeak. Some of the footage that is in plain sight came from television networks, and as far as the firefighters are concerned, there were lots of folks that said that they felt that they were choking. Although I don't have the description like Willie has, you know, an acrid smell, sulfur, et cetera, but the overwhelming majority of the people that we review the videotape, some of it went into the project, some of it didn't. Basically saying the same thing. They were choking and couldn't, you know, they get into the lungs and then they can't breathe.
There is a video out there where they have the police and the fire, and the guys are saying it was explosions going off 4x4, bang, 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 bang. The implications are incredible. We have a building in free fall. We have a building with a massive steel structure, both externally and internally. If you look at an automobile today, you will know, and it's bragged about, that automobile.
You just saw eyewitness Willie Rodriguez. Taking off my white hat for you people who are not watching American Idol or some other buffoonish television network stuff. I would like to give you lots of nice, good news, but today I'm going to present to you factual material that had to get a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, to watch it. And it's from Pilots for 9/11 Truth. And then I'll explain to you what's going on. And if you don't get the grasp of that, what you just saw was two professors telling you that thermite was used in the 9/11 attacks. Now, thermite used on every floor could not possibly have been done by anybody holding a little box cutter knife in a plane. That had to be set up months in advance, and it was. That's why the Twin Towers and the third building that networks don't talk about, 7 World Trade Center, came straight down in their footprint. But now comes some evidence from a FOIA request about tracking the planes after they crashed.
Now, where are you getting this information from, America 11? Okay. You know what? Get rid of this goddamn sim. Turn your switch. Hey, turn the sim switches off. Get rid of that crap.
According to the 9/11 Commission report, 4 aircraft departed America's airports on a gorgeous September morning in the Northeast Corridor of the United States. 2 from Boston Logan, 1 from Newark, New Jersey, and another from Washington Dulles in Virginia. The aircraft alleged to have attacked the World Trade Center are reported to have departed Boston's Logan International Airport. The first aircraft, claimed to be American 11, tail number N334AA, is reported to have departed Logan at approximately 0800 a.m. United 175, tail number N612UA, a few minutes thereafter. Both climbing out to their cruising altitude, it is alleged the aircraft were hijacked by Muslim extremists armed with box cutters. Located at Hill Air Force Base in Utah, the 84th Radar Evaluation Squadron, also known as RADIES, provided software and files through the Freedom of Information Act of the reported radar tracks on the morning of September 11, 2001. We will be analyzing these files throughout this presentation. NORAD provided audio recordings from the morning of September 11, 2001 of their Northeast Defense Command, also known as NEADS, the sector responsible for defending the northeastern United States. The FAA also made available their audio recordings from Boston and Washington. Please keep in mind when viewing this presentation that pilots for 9/11 Truth do not claim data provided by government sources is authentic, yet it must be analyzed. Pilots for 9/11 Truth have analyzed a growing mountain of information and data provided by government agencies, much of which conflicts with the government narrative of events. How can government agencies draw a conclusion when even their own data does not support their hypothesis? Government sources and the 9/11 Commission must be held accountable for such conflicts, yet they refuse to comment. Even if data were altered by their very sources, it is a crime to fabricate data provided through the Freedom of Information Act, and someone must be held accountable. These are the radar tracks of the various aircraft and their relative positions on the morning of 9/11 during a little over the 2-hour period from 8 a.m. till approximately 10:15, according to the 84th Radar Evaluation Squadron. Included is the fighter response. Irreverent air traffic and clutter have been filtered for clarity. According to the tapes, at approximately 0815, American 11 was given a turn 20 degrees to the right to avoid traffic.
Turn 20 degrees right.
The crew read back the instructions and made the turn.
Right, American 11.
Roughly 15 seconds later, American 11 was given an instruction by ATC to climb and maintain 35,000 feet.
American 11, climbing table level 350.
There was no reply. Boston Center made continued attempts to contact American 11 without success.
American 11, climbing table level 350. American 11, Boston.
United 175 checks in on the frequency after departing Boston Logan.
United 175 out of 19 to 230. United 175, Boston, Center, Roger.
The next time American 11 is heard from was the widely publicized infamous call from Mohammed Atta, supposedly at the controls. in which he is alleged to mistakenly have transmitted over the air a demand meant for the cabin.
Is that American 11 trying to call?
Buddy, we have some planes. Just stay quiet and you'll be okay. We're turning to the airport.
This roughly 10 minutes after the last call from the crew.
And who's trying to call me here?
It is important to keep in mind, this transmission could have been broadcast from anywhere. Those who make excuses for the government story claim this transmission was from American 11, because that's what the government told them.
American 11, are you trying to call?
Nobody move. Everything will be okay. If you try to make any move, you'll injure yourself and the airplane. Just stay quiet.
Roughly 25 minutes after departure, 0825, the alleged American 11 changes course according to the Rady's radar. The target turns south and heads for New York City. United 175 then gets handed off to the next sector.
United 175, contact the Boston Center on 133.42.
3342, United 175. Go on.
In this sector, UA 175 gets a visual on an aircraft described as American 11.
United 175, Boston.
175, go ahead, sir.
Roger, you have traffic. Look at your 12 to 1 o'clock at about 10 miles southbound. See if you can see an American 767 out there, please.
Okay, we're looking. Negative contact, guys. 175.
You see at 583. Can you see it?
583, we still don't have him yet, sir. We're looking.
Okay, United 175, you have him at your 12 o'clock now, 10 miles.
Affirmative. We have him. He looks about 20, about 29, 28,000.
Okay, thank you.
UA 175 is given a vector to pass behind that aircraft and then to head direct to its next fix, which is Sparta VOR.
United 175, clear direct Sparta.
Sparta, United 175.
UA 175 is then handed off to New York Center at roughly 5 minutes before the alleged American Airlines 11 impacts the North Tower.
United 175, contact New York Center 127.17.
2717, United 175.
At approximately 0830, the first call was made by the Boston Traffic Management Unit, also known as Boston TMU, to notify the command center of the hijack of American 11.
Command Center East, Tony.
Hi, Tony. Good morning, Boston Center. I got a situation here with American 11, American 11, Boston departure to LAX. We believe it's a possible hijack situation.
Okay, tell me more.
Okay, he departed Boston. We lost radio communications with him. Then we lost his transponder, and they believe that they heard in the background something, a threat. And right now,
What, a threat, you said?
a threat. And right now, the aircraft is just west of Albany, going southbound.
Okay, I see him.
And he's
Nobody's talking to him, right?
nobody's talking to him at this time, correct?
Okay. Anything I can do to help you right now?
And no, I mean, just an advice. We have no idea where this aircraft is going. Maybe a hit up the New York Center.
The command center recommends to notify all surrounding centers, especially New York and Cleveland.
Hey, well, probably as a precaution, might be good if we call up Cleveland and New York and at least let them know, just in case this guy starts heading there, where they'll have a heads
Right.
up on it. Okay, let's do that.
Cleveland. Hi, Cleveland, New York, Boston. I got a little situation with American 11, American 11. He is a 767 departed Boston going to LAX. We don't know where the aircraft is going. He is supposedly going to LAX. Was going westbound. We lost his frequency. Then we lost his transponder, and now the aircraft is just west of Albany, heading due south.
Oh, my goodness. Do we have the data block on it? Who's got the...
Yeah, we it's a primary target presently, and it's heading southwestbound.
Okay.
No altitude encoded right now.
I'll advise the area.
The last altitude observed was flight level 290.
29. Southbound?
Heading southwestbound. He's like towards Hancock, right around there. He's southwest of Albany by 15 miles.
You have no idea where he's going?
No idea, sir.
All right.
You can tag him on the TSD. I did pick him up.
Primary only?
Primary only.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
At approximately 0835, a call to scramble fighters is made by Boston Center directly to Cape Approach, trying to get in touch with Otis Air Force Base.
Cape Drake on Cape on a team unit 41.
Cape Drake on?
Yeah, hi, are you able to talk to Otis on this line?
I'm not sure, but if you need to get in touch with them, I can, I think they're on the 7 line.
I have a situation with the American 11.
What?
I have a situation with American 11.
You want to talk to Otis Tower?
I want to talk to Otis Drake. I need to scramble some fighters.
All right, well, hold on a second. Let me get you the soup. Pick up on the 41. Something about a scramble, I don't know. Cape Approach.
Hey, Cape, Dan Bueno calling from Boston Center.
Yes.
I have a situation with American 11, a possible hijack.
American 11?
Yes, sir. Departed Boston going to LAX. Right now he's south of Albany. I'd like to scramble some fighters to go tail him.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll talk to Otis here.
Okay, and just put a, if he wants, just depart, and we'll put a flight plan in for him.
At 0840, 5 minutes later, Boston calls the command center to speak with New York TRACON Direct, letting them know the hijack is confirmed.
Command Center East, Tony.
Hi, Tony, command center here. Boston Center here. Could I get New York TRACON?
You bet. Oh, nothing with the...
Yes, with American 11.
Say it again?
Oh, a reference to American 11.
Right, have you had any contact with him yet?
No contact. It is confirmed hijack, though.
TRACON.
Hey, TRACON, hi, Boston Center, good morning. American 11, 767, possible hijack.
Okay, American 11, 75, and...
76.
Where's he landing?
Right now, we don't have any idea, but he was to the northwest of Albany, and now he's down by Sparta, losing speed very rapidly. We believe he's a primary only, and we believe he's on the descent. That's why he's slowing down.
I'm just trying to, and he's around the Sparta area now, you say?
Yeah, he's around the Sparta area right now.
Wow, I just don't see anything.
Yeah, it's a primary target right now.
Yeah, I'm looking pretty hard for any kind of primary target. We still should be able to see it. I don't see...
I do have something on the TSD if that gives you an idea of which way he's heading.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at the real raw radar here, and I just don't see... anything out there. I'll let the area know to start looking for it.
We just don't have any idea what out. Last altitude we had was flight level 290, but his speed has diminished quite a bit.
Okay.
So we believe he might be a descent.
Okay. Alrighty.
Okay.
I'll pass along to the sector.
All right, just be careful.
Understand.
Check.
In Boston?
Yes.
You said you confirmed the hijack. How'd you...
Well, what has happened, the pilot has kept the mic keyed while the person's in the cockpit, the flight deck.
Okay, and what are you hearing?
The threat, I don't really know what they're hearing, but that the suit came down and confirmed that it is the hijack.
Okay, if you learn anything else, please give us a call so we can help you out as best we can. Does New York know about this guy heading?
New York knows, Cleveland knows, maybe Washington will be next. We're going to scramble some fighters to tail him.
Okay, coming out of Otis?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take care of the coordination with Washington Center. I will advise them of what's going on.
Thank you.
According to the command center, Washington was also being advised at this time to keep an eye out for suspicious aircraft. This was an hour prior to the attack on the Pentagon. At 08:45, 1 minute prior to the North Tower impact, Cape calls Boston and advises them they would need to get authorization from the Northeast Defense Sector, also known as NEEDS, to launch fighters. Cape gives Boston the flight ID of the fighters as Panta 45 and 46.
Do me a favor.
Samuel? Yeah, it's Cape Trincon here. Is Dan there?
That's me.
Hey, I just talked to Otis here, and they said they needed a NEADS authorization.
We're working with NEAS to see if they should be calling you down.
Okay, just to let you know, we got a call on a Panta, P-A-N-T-A, Alpha November Tango Alpha 45.
Yeah.
And 46, flight of 2. They'll be airborne soon.
Great. Thank you.
All right, TJ.
It is interesting to note that American 11 and United 175 both have the same departure and destination, Boston to LAX, but were given different routing. American 11 was cleared along the preferred Great Circle route to LAX, which directs flights over Syracuse, New York. This is the most direct route to Los Angeles International Airport. United 175 was given a more southern route, used mainly by departures out of Newark. Due to the cleared southern route of the alleged UA-175, the aircraft was closer to the World Trade Center after the first tower strike. Had this aircraft been given the preferred route to LAX, it would have taken more time to reach its target, and perhaps given enough time for fighters to intercept the aircraft before reaching its target. Also, due to this change of route, United 175 crossed American 11 within miles of each other. At this time, UA-93 departed EWR. UA-93 and UA-175 used the same exact path, also within miles of each other. This brings to mind Operation Northwoods. Operation Northwoods was a mission developed by Joint Chiefs of Staff Lemnitzer. The operation dictated swapping commercial aircraft once airborne for drones and shooting them out of the sky. This action was to be blamed on Cuba in order to justify an invasion, a classic false flag mission. Stage an attack and blame it on your enemy to gain public and, most importantly, congressional support for war. There are many tracks which seemingly go out of their way to converge with the alleged 9/11 targets and then split off. Was a swap occurring at these points? A sort of revised and updated form of Operation Northwoods? Of course, a simple explanation will be offered by government agencies and those who make excuses. But the coincidences cannot be ignored. At 8:52 a.m., fighters are launched from Otis Air Force Base. NEEDS repeatedly wants the fighters to go direct to the Z point, to New York City, and demand the FAA ATC clear a route.
I don't know where I'm scrambling these guys to. I need a direction, destination. Okay, I'm going to give you the Z point. It's just north of New York City. I got this lat long 4115, 7436, or 7346. Head them in that direction. Copy that.
Then a report comes in that the hijacked aircraft just struck the World Trade Center.
How's your fighting son doing? May I help you?
Yeah, it's 1st Air Force Sergeant Tibbets. We just confirmed from down here that was one of the same, the hijack and the plane hitting the building.
First Air Force confirmation, one in the same American Airlines and into the World Trade Center. Copy? Is that what you said, sir?
That's copy, yes.
Another report is circulated through the system that the last known position was 15 miles east of JFK.
Last position I got from Boston was 15 miles east of JFK.
Instead of the fighters being scrambled directly to New York City, Needs changes their route to hold in W105, a warning area off the southern coast of Long Island based on the last known position that was never verified. Here they are instructed to hold as a radar track accelerates to more than 150 knots over the max operating speed of a 767 with its target in sight, the World Trade Center South Tower. We analyzed the speeds for the South Tower aircraft thoroughly in our presentation 9/11 World Trade Center attack. We have found, based on precedent, data, and aerodynamics, that a standard 767 would be impossible to control at such excessive speeds over its max operating. Was this aircraft modified so it could beat Otis fighters to its target, the South Tower of the World Trade Center? If it was, the modifications would have to be instructed by individuals who know our air defense response time. Just like there has never been a steel skyscraper to collapse from fire prior to 9/11, there has never been an aircraft positively identified to exceed its max operating speed by more than 150 knots, its maneuvering speed by 220 knots, pulled G's, was controllable and survived before 9/11 or after. After the second impact, Otis fighters were instructed to set up combat air patrol over New York City. Tankers were called in for fueling operations and remained loitering. Almost 35 minutes after American 11 went silent, also known as Nordo, and changed course, American 77 was lost to Indianapolis Center.
Indianapolis Center was working this guy.
What guy?
American 77.
Okay.
At flight level 350. However, they lost radar with him, they lost contact with him, they lost everything, and they don't have any idea where he is or what happened. So what we've done at the surrounding centers here is to tell everyone to look out for limited codes, primary targets, or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
Indianapolis contacted American Airlines 3 times to notify them of another missing aircraft. At 9:08 a.m., Langley was also notified and ordered to battle stations, an order in which pilots are sitting in their cockpits, ready for flight. Yet Langley fighters didn't get airborne till almost 20 minutes later.
Tell Foxy to scramble Langley, send them in the same location. Battle stations or scramble? Battle stations only, Langley.
And were given instruction to head out over the Atlantic instead of directly to protect Washington.
Say again, where you want him?
We want him in the Whiskey 386 area.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
As soon as the Pentagon was attacked, Langley fighters turned towards Washington. There are many other bases closer to Washington and New York City that offer defense. Otis and Langley were selected due to the fact many fighters from other bases were out on training exercises. Several training exercises were in effect on the morning of 9/11.
I hope they cancel the exercise because this is ridiculous.
You guys watching the news?
Yeah, they got it on in the battle cab right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I've been watching it for about 10 minutes, and I said, I wonder if they suspend the exercising?
Not at this time, no. I've never seen so much real-world stuff happen during an exercise.
Andrews Air Force Base is within 10 miles of Washington, D.C. The fighters were sent to North Carolina. Atlantic City F-16s are much closer to New York City than Otis Air Force Base F-15s. Atlantic City fighters were training out over the Atlantic. In fact, Otis also had fighters out on training missions, yet 2 fighters on alert. Needs was also in training mode when the attacks occurred. Needs had simulated tracks on their radar screens and didn't remove them till almost 9:30 a.m., well after the second tower impact. According to Captain Jeff Lottis, a former F-15 fighter pilot with 2 tours of duty in Iraq, false inputs on radar screens is unprecedented. Except on 9/11. You can hear the confusion when Needs is attempting to locate their tankers. Call sign Team 23.
No, Team 21 and 107. Thank you.
This is Team 23. That's yeah, I just told Jeremy, I want him down in 386 when we get him over. Okay. You know what, get rid of this goddamn sim. Turn your switch, hey, turn the sim switches off. Get rid of that crap.
Our defenses just seemed behind the 8-ball every step of the way. Was this all by design? How would the hijackers know to strike on such a chaotic day with the U.S. under minimal defense? It seems the hijackers were extremely lucky all morning on 9/11. That is, if what we've been told by the 9/11 Commission is true. Yet, even the 9/11 Commission admits they haven't been told the truth. The Pentagon, our nation's military headquarters. How could an aircraft get so close to the Pentagon after America has been attacked almost an hour prior? The Pentagon in Washington, D.C. is well defended, according to former Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger.
The city is ringed with Air Force bases and Navy bases, and the ability to get defensive planes in the air is very, very high, and at the same time you would do what is being done, and that is closing off the entire airspace so that you, in effect, the whole Washington area is a no-fly zone, so that any planes that can't identify themselves that get into that are to be shot down.
Does the Pentagon also have anti-aircraft defense? Certainly the general public would not know of such installations, as our enemies would obtain the same information. If the Pentagon did have such a defense, it would certainly be classified. April Gallup is a survivor of the Pentagon attack. She crawled through the hole in the Pentagon holding her son. April says that she did not see any evidence of an aircraft crash and didn't even know an airplane was reported to have caused the damage till she got to the hospital. April is extremely puzzled by the fact that there were no warnings or defense of the Pentagon attack, especially when everyone in the world knew America was being attacked after the World Trade Center strikes. When discussing airspace surrounding our nation's capital, often the restricted airspace referred to is the prohibited areas around the Capitol building and the White House. We have to look further out. This is known as Class Bravo airspace. It is a highly controlled airspace in which you need a clearance to enter, including two-way radio communication and a working Mode C transponder that reports your altitude. New York and Washington, D.C. both have Class Bravo airspace surrounding their hub airports. New York covers JFK, Newark, and LaGuardia, while Washington covers Baltimore, Reagan National in the middle, and west to Dulles. American 77 was lost from radar when its transponder was shut off at 8:56 a.m. This is 10 minutes after the first tower strike, and 16 minutes after Washington was notified to keep an eye out for suspicious aircraft. Danielle O'Brien at Washington TRACON observed a fast-moving target penetrating Washington Class Bravo. She wasn't notified of the events in New York, yet Washington Center was advised. Why was this information seemingly intercepted from getting to TRACON controllers in Washington? Had Miss O'Brien and her colleagues been advised of the events in New York, would she have been more alert to have the target penetrating Washington Class Bravo intercepted? Would the word have gone out to the Langley fighters, who were now heading out over the Atlantic? If the unidentified target reached Washington, D.C., certainly Pentagon aircraft defense could have played a role, if April Gallup is correct. Some have argued that the Pentagon would not have such a defense because Reagan National is so close, an aircraft departing and arriving could inadvertently be shot down. Those who make such arguments aren't familiar with how the national airspace system works. Most aircraft arriving into Reagan National are well known of their intentions prior to even departing their origin airport. Those that aren't are well known of their intentions prior to entering Washington Class Bravo, 30 miles from Reagan National. Those who don't communicate and perhaps have their transponders off, that is your target. Aside from the fact we already know it's impossible for an aircraft to have caused the physical damage at the Pentagon based on witnesses filmed on location and data provided by government agencies, an unidentified aircraft should not have been anywhere close to the Pentagon. It appears the interceptors were intercepted. Always one step behind the curve. until the objectives were accomplished. The confusion caused throughout the system on 9/11 seems to be the contributing factor of why the perpetrators were so successful in carrying out their missions.
Hey, turn the swim switches off.
When an unidentified target was approaching Washington, D.C. from the west, a message was sent out in the system that American 11 was still airborne.
Scoggins Military, Boston Center. Just had a report that American 11 is still in the air and it's on its way heading towards Washington.
Okay, American 11 is still in the air on its way towards Washington?
It was evidently another aircraft that hit the tower. That's the latest report we have.
Okay.
I'm going to try to confirm an ID for you, but I would assume he's somewhere over either New Jersey or somewhere further south.
Okay, so American 11 isn't a hijack at all then, right?
No, he is a hijack.
American 11 is a hijack?
Yes.
And he's going into Washington?
It could be a third aircraft.
It could be a third aircraft going on to Washington. Do you have a Mode 3 on him, sir?
No, Mode 3, we're trying to get a radio to me if I can. This is a report I had from Washington Center. You might want to get someone on another phone talking to Washington Center, see if they have him tracked up.
Copy that.
And then get maybe DC Guard or somebody up there on the aircraft.
Okay, do you have a lat long right now on it?
I will try to get one.
Okay, copy, thanks.
All eyes then focused on a target coming from the northeast and not the west. Also, this message was sent out that the aircraft was headed towards Washington before it would have even gotten to Philly. Why was the rumor started that an aircraft from the northeast is inbound to Washington and not Philly? Was it to lead interceptors toward a phantom target and away from the real threat inbound from the west? The ultimate source for this confusion is still unknown.
Hello.
Hi, this is Huntress ID.
Huntress, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. We have fighters on battle stations and airborne also. We're trying to figure out the lat long for the American 11. Boss just gave us a heads up and said that he was heading towards Washington.
Now, where are you getting this information from on American 11?
Boston military.
Who?
Boston military?
Boston?
Yes.
Military death.
And they said that they were getting updates through Washington.
So not Washington Center, I'm sure, because American 11 is the airplane that we're under the premise that has already crashed into the Trade Center.
Right.
Again, someone intercepted the interceptors by providing false information. Washington TRACON was isolated due to the fact that they weren't advised of the events in New York. The rest of the system was virtually isolated from Washington TRACON because TRACON didn't feel the unidentified target may be a threat until it was too late. Again, due to the fact the information seemed to have been intercepted from getting to Washington TRACON.
Have any information you may need on this flight?
Okay, if you could do me a favor and have them call us. We cannot call out for some reason.
By this time, many are aware of the infamous Norman Mineta testimony given to the 9/11 Commission. The aircraft was 50 miles out, 30 miles out, 10 miles out. Do the orders still stand?
The plane is 10 miles out. The young man also said to the vice president, do the orders still stand? And the vice president turned and whipped his neck around and said, of course the orders still stand. Have you heard anything to the contrary? Well, at the time I didn't know what all that meant. And
the flight you're referring to is the
flight that came into the Pentagon.
Yeah.
To this day, there has been much controversy over what exactly those orders were. Were they to stand down in order to let the Pentagon attack occur? Were they a shoot-down order? Mineta's testimony has been among the most damaging because those who make excuses for the government story are having a very difficult time trying to explain such a conversation with the vice president.
Some young man came in and said to the vice president, there's a plane 50 miles out coming towards D.C. So I said to Monty Belger, who's the number 2 at FAA, I said, Monty, what do you have on radar on this plane coming in? He said, well, the transponder's been turned off, so we don't know who it is, and we don't know the altitude or speed. And so I said, well, where is it? He said, well, it's somewhere beyond Great Falls right now. And so then the young man came in and said, it's 20 miles away. And so I'd say, well, Monty, where is this plane in relationship to the ground? And radar, it's hard to associate with a ground point, but they'd be able to tell you roughly the distance from wherever you are. But he couldn't tell you speed or altitude. And then all of a sudden, as I was talking to him, he said, "Oh, I lost the bogey, lost the target." I said, "Well, where is it?" He said, "Well, somewhere between Roslyn and National Airport." And about that time, someone broke into the conversation. Said, "Mr. Secretary, we just had a confirmation from a Arlington County police officer saying that he saw an American Airlines plane go into the Pentagon."
Some have argued that the aircraft which was being discussed was United Airlines 93 coming down from Pennsylvania, and that Mineta had his timeline inaccurate. This can't be the case, as United 93 never got close to the Pentagon. Some have argued it was American Airlines 11, but same thing. American Airlines 11 never got close to the Pentagon. Even in what is called coast track mode, when a radar track of an aircraft continues on its present course based on the last data received, the aircraft still would not have been close to the Pentagon. The aircraft target being discussed by Vice President Cheney and overheard by Mineta could only be the target inbound from the west, which penetrated Washington-class Bravo airspace. Combine that with the fact that the Langley fighters were headed out over the Atlantic during this time and turned inbound only after the target drops off radar near the Pentagon, it seems pretty obvious what the orders were. An airborne command center, a military version of a 747, was airborne when the unidentified target approached from the west. According to Rady's data, this aircraft did a dozy-do with the unidentified target as the F-16s were headed out over the Atlantic. Again, at the moment the target disappears at the Pentagon, the F-16s are then turned towards Washington. Operation Northwoods proposed swapping aircraft for drones and using them in a false flag attack to blame on Cuba. There is evidence of the original aircraft still airborne after their supposed crash. Unlike the false rumors floated through the system in an apparent attempt to intercept the interceptors, there is data which does show UA-93 still airborne after its alleged crash, as well as N612UA, the aircraft which supposedly hit the South Tower. ATC transcripts show UA-93 still airborne at a location just south of the impact crater. ACAR's data, a device used for communicating with aircraft, show UA-175 still airborne in western Pennsylvania, almost 20 minutes after its reported crash. This ACAR's data reports the closest station transmitting to and from an aircraft. The official flight path of the alleged UA-175 shows that if the aircraft were to receive an ACAR's message, it should have come from these transmitting locations. This is the map of the ACAR's facility surrounding the New York City area. However, ACAR's stations were reported to have transmitted from Harrisburg and Pittsburgh, PA, after the alleged impact at the South Tower. According to radar specialist and electrical engineer Dennis Cimino, this is impossible if N612UA crashed into the World Trade Center. War games, simulated radar tracks, routing clearances other than preferred, enabling the second aircraft threat to be closer to the World Trade Center after the first impact. Aircraft exceeding their max operating limits by more than 130 to 150 knots. Inaccurate aircraft position reports, false aircraft target reports, aircraft converging, flying virtually in formation with, and then diverging from reported 9/11 aircraft. Fighters launched in the wrong directions. Aircraft seemingly still airborne after the alleged attacks. Poor communications. Phones not working.
We cannot call out for some reason.
All right, let me have your number.
Is it any surprise that our defenses were always one step behind? While the perpetrators of 9/11 were able to successfully accomplish their mission with military precision. Are we supposed to believe Al-Qaeda was running all this interference so the supposed hijackers could complete their mission? Bin Laden isn't even listed as a suspect for 9/11, yet we went into Afghanistan to smoke him out. These are real questions. The cold hard facts added to the growing mountain of information and data, which does not add up to what we have been told by our government. Write your Congress representatives, your senators, demand a full and thorough investigation before we write more law giving up our freedoms in the name of security. They who give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Benjamin Franklin, February 17th, 1775. Thank you for taking the time to inform yourself.
Play music now. Get a ticket for an airplane. Ain't got time, say no factory. Lonely days are gone, I'm coming home. Guess you wrote me a letter. I don't care, but I gotta spill. Find my way, way back home again.
Well, there you have it, people. That was the pilots, 9/11 Truth by the 9/11 pilots. The point I hope you got is after the planes had allegedly crashed into the Twin Towers, magically the primary pinger was still pinging out a signal from somewhere high up in the air. How could that be? We have been so massively lied to. And as we started the show, you saw a professor from Utah that was forced into retirement, partial retirement, Stephen, and also Professor Roki. Both of them, professors, telling you that the chemical evidence from the dust said those towers were brought down with massive amounts of nanothermite, which is a really powerful explosive. Cuts through steel like it's butter, like a knife going through, hot knife going through butter. So there you had two professors telling you, and I opened the show with that because I wanted you to realize all the nonsense we have been fed. And by the way, when Bush and Cheney testified to the 9/11 Commission, they only did it on two conditions. One, they testified together, not separately, as every other witness did. And secondly, they were not under oath. When did you ever hear of somebody testifying but not under oath? Why couldn't President George W. Bush and Dickless Cheney, why couldn't they testify under oath? What was it they were so afraid of that if they slipped up and told the truth or told a bad lie and got caught in it later, they could be held for perjury? But it's not surprising to me. I've read the Warren Commission report from 1964 about the JFK assassination, and even Justice Earl Warren, who was once governor of this state of California, didn't like the final result, when the actual printed Warren report came out, he had not read it before it came out in its final edition. What he thought was going to be in it was badly chopped up and scripted. Didn't come out the way Earl Warren did. He was not a happy camper. But you'd have to read Nelson's book and some of those other books. You know, Philip F. Nelson, the LBJ, the mastermind of the JFK assassination. Remember that book? You'd have to read that book to understand how completely crazy, psychopath Lyndon Baines Johnson was as vice president. But J. Edgar Hoover was going to be forced into retirement. He wanted Kennedy dead because he was tapping Robert F. Kennedy, the Attorney General at the time in 62, 63, and JFK, President Kennedy's phone. And to his face, JFK was lying to Hoover, saying, "Don't worry about it, J. Edgar. We're going to waive the mandatory retirement age for you when you come up for reappointment to the directorship of the FBI. Don't worry about it." And they drank tea together and smiled at each other. And then a few days later, JFK is talking to his brother Robert, said, "Yeah, we got to get rid of that gay, fat, blankety-blank J. Edgar Hoover. And as soon as we get rid of Lyndon Baines Johnson to get me a better running mate for 64 re-election, and I win re-election, we're going to pull out of Vietnam. I'm going to get rid of Hoover," because Hoover had been blackmailing everybody, including the Kennedys, and the Kennedys were aware of it. But what the Kennedys were not aware of, and probably didn't know even at the moment, the day that they were shot dead, is that their conversations, which they thought was on a secure line, was tapped, and J. Edgar Hoover was getting it. So read that book by Philip F. Nelson called LBJ, The Mastermind of the JFK Assassination. Read that book. I really encourage you to do so. Even though it's about an assassination that took place more than a half century ago, it was really a coup d'etat, and the CIA took over running the government. Yeah, read this book. Those are the brooding eyes of a psychopath named Lyndon Baines Johnson, or what his friends called him, a Lion Lyndon, because he was always lying. He stole the 1948 U.S. Senate election in Texas and never looked back. He killed 8 people. He had his own personal assassin. It's in the book. His own personal assassin called Mac Wallace, who was convicted of first-degree murder, and then he walked home, or at least he walked out of the courthouse and drove his vehicle home. Mac Wallace didn't do even 1 week in state prison in Texas for first-degree conviction, first-degree premeditated murder, with 6 witnesses saying, "Yes, that's him, Mac Wallace, he did it. I saw him walk into the Gulf shot, and he boom, 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 and shot this guy. Shot him dead. We all saw." And the judge sentenced him to a few years probation for first-degree murder. Hello? How many people do you know get convicted of first-degree premeditated murder and then go home free? Well, I only know of one person who did a murder and who was never charged, and that's because of the rotten district attorney of Orange County, California, Tony Rackauckas. It took Tony 3 years to come up and press charges very gently. 3 years after they found 3 bottles of date rape drug in Sami Bakhtar's home, where Andrea Nelson was last seen alive. Oh, and by the way, since I mentioned that, coming up next month in May, the Bakhtars are being criminally prosecuted for misdemeanor permit violations because they started deconstructing the house where Linda Cater believes her daughter was murdered, and I do too, and they've left it half destroyed. They tore out the walls, tore off the roof, tore out the carpet, the walls, the drywall, and left it that way for 5 or 6 years. And just recently, they put a roof on and put a coat of stucco, and have left it, like this for like almost 10 years. Linda Cater's daughter, Andrea Nelson, was carried into Hug Hospital in Orange County, already cold. Already cold. And then the guy carrying in, Mr. Bakhtar, a non-American resident, told the orderly and the emergency doctors on duty, "Oh, we're just driving around and she passed out." You don't go, the body doesn't get cold in 10 minutes driving around in a very comfortable, warm Mercedes-Benz. It just doesn't happen, or any vehicle. And the Bakhtars are pretty rich. Their dad was the guy who put a leader of one of the Arab states into power after the fall of the Shah of Iran. Very well connected. And I just have to wonder, are they CIA protected? Is that why it took 3 years after they found 3 bottles of date rape drug, took 3 years for Tony Rackauckus to finally bring charges? Now remember, here in Santa Barbara County, the Max Factor heir to the Max Factor cosmetic fortune, I think his name was Andrew Lester, he didn't kill anybody. He raped some girls with this GHB rape drug. He was found with 1 bottle, but he didn't kill any of those young women. He got life in sentence, a life sentence for 1 bottle. And here's the Bakhtars down there in Orange County. They not only delay 3 years before they even press the charges, but then he gets first-time PC 1000, first-time offenders PC 1000, and he walks out of the courtroom. I was there. I followed him right out of the courtroom, trying to get an interview on tape with him. All he says, no, I have nothing to say. No. He gets in a taxi and whizzes away. Taxi was sitting there waiting for him. But it was interesting to see him walk out of the courtroom, and Pastor Wiley Drake and I were both there. We were both witnesses. Comes out of the courtroom, goes across the hallway. They have a probation officer waiting in a little room right across the hallway. He goes in, sits there for 20, 30 minutes with probation officer, signs some papers, and he goes home. And that was 3 years after the death, and 3 years after they found 3 bottles of date rape drug. And I just have to wonder, does the CIA run America, and do they do it for their own purposes and not for the good of Americans? Because if the Central Intelligence Agency was really working on behalf of the American people, Andrea Nelson was a beautiful 20-something-year-old American girl. And she was literally carried dead by this foreigner into the Hog Hospital cold. How does that happen? I spoke to the prosecutor because I wanted to know what their intention was. They're not even going to ask for jail time because they're only prosecuting him on misdemeanor building code violations. Misdemeanor building code violations, really. Misdemeanor building code violations. For code violations that have been ongoing for a decade. Anyway, I don't want to harp on that. I'd rather sing you a happy song. But before we go to that, I want you to see this little interview I did with a guy who worked for what's beginning to look like a really incompetent or deliberately negligent attorney. She's a pretty blonde attorney in Orange County. And I now have 4 people that will tell me on camera, and one just did this past Wednesday and one did last month, that she filed all the paperwork late and they lost her case. And it had to do with foreclosure. So let's go to see George as I introduce George. And I know Pamela wanted to do an intro, but hey, Pam, that's the way it goes. Watch this, be back.
Amazing show. So everybody out in the audience and at home, comfy, cozy, get a snack, and get ready for tonight's show. And now, for the host and star of this 14-year-long weekly TV show, the one and only William J. Wagener. Woo!
Wagener here in Riverside County with George. George, do I have permission to publish this interview?
Yes, you sure do.
Are you going to tell me the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but what you know to be personally true?
So help me God.
And what is your last name, George?
My last name is Olivo.
Spell that.
Olivo.
All right. George is here because George happened to work for the Occupy movement. And because he was interested in helping people realize they've been reduced to debt slaves in America, he got involved in helping, what was the name of that family whose house you saved?
That was the Perez family home in the city of Anaheim.
And they're still in their home.
They are still in their home.
And it didn't come from legal filings in the courthouse.
No, sir. It came from the family working very hard, organizing the community, making some noise in the bank, and social media, which is our greatest tool.
Did you take blowhorns and stand outside the bank with blowhorns telling them what for?
Yes, sir. We went inside the banks with bullhorns demanding justice for this family who did never miss a mortgage payment and were being foreclosed on their home.
How could they foreclose on the Perez family when they had never missed a payment?
The banks had sold the mortgage to another company, which Mrs. Perez did not know. She made the mortgage payment to her original mortgage people, and they sent it back and gave her the people to send the mortgage payment, which she did, and then her mortgage payment was denied.
Wow. After how many years were the Perez family paying? How many years?
Close to 30 years.
So they were almost paid off.
Yes, they were.
And then they tried to take the home.
Yes, they did.
And now they're still in the home, but did they sign a new mortgage?
I can't give any specifics of that mortgage because if I do, they will take it back.
Okay, gotcha. Anyway, all this led to some meetings that you had with Occupy, correct?
Yes, and social media because we've tried to fight foreclosures in court, only to lose and with horrible results. But when we do social media, harass the banks directly, demanding justice with the people and organize the community and go to city council and we let the people know what we're doing. We apply the pressure on the banks to where they open up negotiations for a modification that the homeowners can afford.
I got that. So this works better than going into court with an attorney.
Yes, it does. I've never seen a foreclosure victory in the past 5 years that I've been a part of fighting foreclosures and doing social media. I personally have yet to see a victory in court. I know that there's a few of them out there. I know we have a couple of people who are suffering some prison time over their foreclosure victory. But their case is documented, but they're still getting punished for winning a settlement from the banks.
Yeah, that's. I'm thinking of Mary McCullough when you say that.
Exactly, that's exactly who I was speaking of.
And they punished her for winning, a big judgment over the crimes of the bank.
Yes, they did. They punished her for winning. That's exactly it. For exposing and winning a settlement.
We've got to punish the bank somehow, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Now I want to go on. So this led to going to meetings, and at one of your Occupy meetings, did somebody approach you claiming to be an attorney fighting for the people?
Yes, that would be Lenore Albert. She approached us in many different foreclosure groups, offering assistance, claiming to have foreclosure victories and wins, none that I ever knew about, and come to find out, neither did anybody else. But she came offering assistance. She took clients from that are their foreclosure fighters themselves to help them in their case that she retained. She took their money and ran. She's famous for late filing.
Now, do you know this? You know this because you did what? You followed her day and night, or you worked for her?
What I did is I supported her because she supported us at the Perez home. And if you can imagine, we're activists. So at that time, we thought, wow, we have an attorney with a bar card that's willing to support and help us legally.
That's what you thought?
That's what I thought, because that's what she had said. And she did spend some time with us. She attended some of our meetings, and she met other people. She offered her assistance at no charge. Then a few months later, we found out that she retained some of our people. And what I mean by our people, I'm talking about the foreclosure fighters who fight for people's homes that were losing their homes, right? That were in the process of fighting for their homes and fighting for other people's homes as well. She retained them as clients, gave them false hope, false allegations, never filed anything in court, and if she did, it was late. It got dismissed and thrown out.
Now you know that because you worked for her?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did she pay you too well?
She paid me peanuts for long hours. I went to work for her because she had broken her hand, and she needed my help. She didn't have any other employees there at that time, and she doesn't drive. She needed a driver.
Tim, she had a guy named Tim working for her, right?
Yes.
And she'd laid him off.
Well, he quit for personal reasons.
He quit, okay. So I just wanted to be clear. She didn't fire him. He quit for personal reasons.
Yes.
Okay, and then you came to work for her because of all this. And did you ever see one case that Lenore took that she flat out won in court for the homeowner?
No.
Went to work for her. Did Cindy Brown go to work for her?
Yes, she did.
And did Cindy see her win any cases?
I don't believe so. I can't speak for her, but I can guarantee you no.
Okay, well.
And Sherry Moody went to work for her as well, who is very close and personal to me, which started this whole different ball game that we have here with this attorney. What happened was she filed Sherry Moody's case in the 11th hour, not giving opposing counsel 24 hours notice. So it got dismissed and thrown. I knew that it got dismissed and thrown, and I knew that it happened. So I told her what she did was wrong. She had a placard on her desk that honors her service as an attorney. I twisted that placard and I go, why don't you honor what this placard says and what is it doing here? She accused me of picking up that placard, holding it over her head, filed a restraining order against me, which was dismissed with prejudice, and I was awarded $1,000 in attorney fees. She has also filed more TROs, temporary restraining orders, for the very foreclosure fighters that we have sat together in the trenches and we have helped people. And a lot of times when we help people with foreclosures, it's helping them pack up their stuff because we lose. We have very few wins, but we fight like hell for the people. And these people give up their time. She's attacked the very people because I held her accountable with Sherry Moody's case. She had dismissed her clients for being friends of mine in different foreclosure groups.
Oh.
She had fired them because now she because I'm a social media journalist, I told her that what she did was wrong. I was warned by a couple of people that Lenore Albert is not doing what she says she's going to do, and she's doing late filings, and she's not honoring her word with this, and she's taking people's money and not being held accountable, and she's not winning any cases, and she's filing her cases
You
late.
never saw her win a single case?
No, and I'm ashamed to say that somebody very near and dear to me who warned me, I didn't listen because I believed her lies, that the reason why this and this happened, she had every excuse in the world. But when she did it in front of my face with Sherry Moody's case, because I'm an eyewitness to her lying to Sherry Moody on the phone, telling her that she was working on her case. Don't worry. At that time, I lived with Sherry Moody. All right? So I would go home and Sherry Moody would ask me, what's going on with my case? Lenore's not returning my cell phone calls. She's not returning my text messages. I have a court date coming up. Hello? How come I'm not in her office sitting down, going over, getting the paperwork ready with her? How come she's not? And when I talked to Lenore, I got all of her paperwork together. Lenore had told me that don't worry about Sherry Moody's case.
You're traveling into another dimension, a dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind, whose only limitation is the imagination. Next stop, the courthouse zone. Well, You're probably thinking, well, my attorney doesn't call me back either. My attorney took a, well, most of them do. That's why we need to abolish all of the state bar associations. Les Winston said this in Florida, and I taped him, oh gosh, 4 years ago. Les Winston said this: abolish the Florida bar. We need to abolish the California bar. They protect bad attorneys. They do not. Lenore had a case. She sued Yelp because Yelp had some negative reviews about attorney Lenore Alberts. She sued Yelp and she lost. Then she sued the State Bar Association. I don't know why. I wasn't privy to that litigation. But guess what? This was funny. Lenore is complaining about people like me that talk about sovereignty, about the people being sovereign. And the state bar stopped her lawsuit flat by claiming sovereignty. So if the state bar is a sovereign entity that cannot be sued, why aren't we the people sovereign? We are. They just don't want you to know it. And the state bar is a foreign entity. So sign up for, that's my cell phone carrier. Got that little plug in, yep. But the state bar needs to go. Really, they protected too many criminals with their bar cards. Now, we started the show with 9/11. We started with showing you the professor from Utah and the other professor, Roki, telling you about 9/11 thermite dust that disintegrated the steel and concrete. Then you saw in tonight's show the evidence from 9/11 pilots showing you that the transponder's primary signal was still sending off a signal from up high even after the supposed total collision into the Trade Centers. And don't forget, there was a third building, 7 World Trade Center. So I want to go back to a little bit of 9/11, but we're not going to have time. I don't think we're going to have time, are we? Well, sometimes you have to rewind to go find what you want to find. And I hope you go and research this stuff yourself. When I say this stuff, I'm talking about the 9/11 Pilots for Truth. There's also engineers for 9/11 Truth, architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. Many, many professional people that are not Democrat, they're not Republican, they're not Libertarian, have studied this and said, we weren't told the whole truth. We've been lied to. If you knew all the lies, if we could get network media to just show us what's really going on, I think we would have Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld in federal prisons, maybe at Gitmo, on bread and water waiting for their execution. Because that's how deep the treason goes. It goes right to the top. Not do we the people. We've been dumbed down and lied to. Anyway, that's William Wagener's opinion. So we've covered a lot of things, and I'd like to leave tonight on a song, and leave a song in your heart. So I could sing for you for the next 15 minutes. Down our way, both night and day, you know everybody, and they all know you. And even policemen say, up against the wall, mother. But you won't want to hear me. So I brought in some really good barbershop singers, literally beamed them down to earth from the Spaceship Enterprise. And we beamed them down just for you so we could close this 90-minute session off with a song in your heart, and you wouldn't have to listen to me sing. Isn't that merciful? I'm William Wagener for this edition of On Second Thought. See you next week.
Fly the friendly skies on the Enterprise. Da, 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 da. We'll fly through the galaxy, me and my pals on the Enterprise. Our 5-year mission is a new tradition, the Enterprise. We boldly go where no man has gone before. No sign of intelligence, beam us aboard. You can effect us behind our deflectors, the Enterprise, the ship that's truly vulcanized.
Captain, I fail to see the
It's nifty, it's neato, blasting the Romulans with photon torpedoes. Oh, what a joy, the toy for boys, the Enterprise. Where you can bring Spock, those logics up the rock, but don't bring Sulu. Scotty can go with, he's gonna blow, but don't bring Sulu. Sulu drives the Enterprise like it has some fuzzy dice. When he brings the ship around, all the bridges falling down. You can bring Kirk, though he's kind of a jerk, but don't bring Sulu. You can bring Bones, though he whines and moans, and he'll often lose his head.
Blast, Jim! I'm a doctor, not a baritone.
Like we said, Sulu in the pool, and danger I'll renew. 'Cause Desi Lulu says don't bring Sulu, check off instead. So beam me up, Scotty, I must use the potty on the Enterprise, the ship that's truly vulcanized. Those vulcanized.
Captain, I still fail to see.
We fly on, we sing on, and in between we're gonna bag us a Klingon. Oh, what a joy, the toy for boys, the we love the Enterprise in the Federation skies on the Enterprise.
Captain's log, stardate 2426.5. While following a strange, unidentified ship, the Enterprise has been thrown into uncharted space. We are, in fact, lost. Mr. Spock is calculating our position. Before Lord God made the sea and the land, he held all the stars in the palm of his hand, and they ran through his fingers like grains of sand, and one little star fell alone. Then the Lord God hunted through the wide night air for the little dark star on the wind down there. And he stated and promised he'd take special care so it wouldn't get lost no more. Now a man don't mind if the stars grow dim and the clouds blow over and darken dim. So long as the Lord God's watching over them, keeping track how it all goes on. Now I've been walking through the night and day till my eyes get weary and my head turns gray. And sometimes it seems maybe
Captain, I may have miscalculated our transport coordinates. It appears we have beamed down into something called a barbershop show.
Barbershoppers?
These here are known as Santa Maria Tonianites.
Sit. Barbershoppers? Holmes, get a reading. Are they human?
Tough call.
Mr. Spock, perform the Vulcan mind meld and find out what they want.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Mr. Spock, what are they looking for?
No one knows. Records indicate they sometimes respond well to songs about human females. Perhaps we should try that.
Make it so.
Of all the girls on all the worlds, there must be one for me to love. 5'2", skin of blue, looks like she's in Blue Man Crew. Has anybody seen my Angela? Have you seen her blue pug nose as her toes? And when her antenna glows, anybody seen my gal? He wants a just like the girl I met on Starbase 9. She'd pontificate and would calculate numbers at our prime.
Blast your Vulcan logic, Spock. If it wasn't for your pointy ears, your stick-up eyebrows, and that bad wig, we wouldn't be here in the first place.
Dr. McCoy, I find your insults to be highly illogical. And your wig is no great prize either.
He wants a
Sweet Adeline. That would be fine.
if she also was a nurse
That sings in rhyme.
rhythm and line. How I wish for the bliss of her sweet hydraulic kiss. Has anybody seen my gal? Have seen her lovely shape, custom built? Squeeze her wrong and she says tilt. Has anybody seen my gal? You know she promised me recently she wouldn't stray. Come the dawn, she was gone. 8 billion miles away, she had such zeal and sex appeal. Her evening gown is stainless steel. Anybody seen my gal, my spacey lady? Anybody seen my little sweet gasher? She's a hottie.
I still have to potty.
My
Mr. Spock, I've been trying to combine the universal translator with the ship's computer to create music, and I can't make it work.
Mr. Scott, you know very well that music is nothing more than a series of mathematical
Oh, wait,
equations.
Spock, your precious computer can't take the place of the heart and soul of a human.
You can't change the laws of physics.
Captain, I programmed the tricorder to generate a genuine barbershop song. I have every confidence in its results.
Well, let's take this music to infinity and beyond.
Blackbird, blackbird, I'm coming home tonight. It's too high. Pack up all my care and woe, here I go, sing it lower. Bye, bye, blackbird. Oh no, where's somebody
of G. Bye, blackbird, well. Anybody recognize this stupid key? I think it's a G, but we belong in D. At least we're not repeating ourselves. At least we're not repeating ourselves. High scores, There's a funny little key that keeps slipping by me, just this side of an F sharp. Natural. No. Sharp. It should have been E, but it ended up D. Minor. Come on. But oh, how we settled for A, not E, A. They said tonal center just L. How the heck can they tell? This song's gone straight to H-E-L. P. Come on, guys. We can do this. One more time, let's pick a key. Sing it sweet as can be. Bye, bad keys. Now nobody laughs at me. We're alright, can't you see? Bye, bad keys. Okay, I got an idea. Let's just ask the chorus, aren't we doing well? Fascinating rhythm thinks we're in the key of L. Pick a key or we will face, starring in Lost in Space. Blackbird, bye. Get lost, blackbird. Who pitched blackbird? So long, you blackbird, bye. This blackbird will never fly. Hope we don't dissatisfy. He might buy another try. I don't know. I'm sure the computer was. Bye, blackbird,
Hi, Captain. In a crowd like this can accept a song with 24 key changes. Surely they would love a bagpipe solo.
Jim?
Yes,
I borrowed Scotty's bagpipes.
but you can't play the bagpipes.
And as long as I have them, neither can he.